Today on Locked On Canadiens, are we close to seeing Engstrom and Reinbacher here in Laval?
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi there, everyone, and welcome to episode 1024. It's crazy that I'm saying that. Of your first listen of the day, every day, we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. And today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. My name is Laura Saab, also known as the Active Stick, and I'm joined, as always, by the wonderful Scott Matla of Habs Eyes on the Prize. Scott, are you ready to do some trade deadlines, speculating, and some game previewing today?
I mean, I don't see why not. It's the best part of the season is when we get to rampantly speculate about things with what's going on. And I know that that's later on in the show here because we have a southern road trip to continue discussing here. So
Yes,
we'll
and
get to my wheelhouse in here somewhere.
In here somewhere. I do want to point out that after the trade deadline, we will have a live episode with a special guest. We are bringing our family, our large adult son, Ian Boisvert, back into the fold. It's been a while since we've had him on. So we will have a live episode on Friday, and we will confirm the time that it will start. And so you guys can join us and ask your questions. And we're going to have some fun recapping the trade deadline. And that's all. Like, stay tuned for confirmation of the time for that. In the meantime, before we do all of that, the Montreal Canadiens are going to play the Predators. And Scott, I don't know about you, but at the beginning of the season, I truly felt that the Predators were going to be one of those dead in the water teams. Now, they are helped by being in a conference that isn't really all that great, or isn't universally great. Like, their team, like, there's no, like, real logjam of teams or whatever. But I don't know about you, but like, they're way better than I expected. They're trending way higher than I expected at the beginning of the season.
And they started off like not overly impressive, and it was a team that kind of looked like they were in that weird like no man's land space where they're just outside the playoffs, but they don't look or feel like a playoff team. And currently they occupy in a tie with LA for the first wild card spot. They have 72 points in 62 games. The issue is with them is that they play in a division that has the Jets at 83 points, the Stars at 83 points, and the Avs at 79 points. They are in a very, very scary deep division there that they kind of get overlooked a little bit, but they're sitting fourth in that division, and 72 points in most of these divisions is good. I mean, for top three in most of these spots here. They are a team that I do have some fear of. The Canadiens have had struggles against them, but they are playing a team that is currently just absolutely scorching hot coming into this right now. I think they've won 8 straight games coming into this, and that's a fearsome thing. Yeah, they're 8-2-0 in their last 10 games on an 8-game winning streak. That's a terrifying thing to be playing if you're the Canadiens. Coming into a week where the results haven't bounced your way, unfortunately.
Right. But at the same time, this is a huge opportunity for the Canadiens. I'm going to stop looking at them as challenges, and I'm going to start looking at them as opportunities. For us, it definitely has been a stretch of games where we've seen a lot of improvement in the Canadiens 5-on-5 play. It's just a lot of the times the bounces haven't been going their way. And we've also noted a marked absence in the way that they unravel when something goes wrong. But at the same time, the Canadiens still have a lot of limitations, right? Like, talent-wise, there's a lot of limitation. Like, options-wise for the coaching staff, it's very limited. They've been getting excellent goaltending from Samuel Montembeault. They've been getting, the top line is always clicking. They're always doing the right thing. That breakout from I was going to say Nick Suzuki, but the breakout from Uri Slavkovsky, like this year, cannot be discounted. At the same time, they are struggling a little bit with their depth, and their defense is still, to me, it's a very big question mark. I don't love the special teams. Yes, we're talking about the power play being better because now there's the threat of Uri Slavkovsky on there. There's still a lot of limitations. So I like to look at it now instead of looking at it as like they're challenged or whatever. Like I'm looking at this as a what are they able to overcome, right? Like what are the disadvantages that the Canadians are able to play through and still churn out the 5-on-5 underlying numbers that we're seeing and we're pleased with.
Yeah, and like I'm looking at the roster here, and there's a lot of like Philip Forsberg and Roman Josi are very good. Ryan O'Reilly's having a really good season. Gustav Nyquist has 51 points in 62 games, surprisingly. The newly resigned Tommy Novak, 34 points in 51 games. Their scoring falls off, but they're a team that seems to lock has on this current streak can, maybe make it a little bit butt clenchy, but it's an opportunity to see, can the Canadians against a very strong, hot team right now keep that run of play up? We know Jake Allen is getting the start in this. This is his, I'm not even going to say this is likely this will be his last start before the trade deadline. I assume Montembeault or Primo, I assume Montembeault will play against Carolina and against Toronto this weekend. I don't know who's going to start for the Preds, but given that the Canadians have mostly gotten backups on the year, I wouldn't be shocked if they're playing Kevin Lankinen, who has an 8-4 record, 3.23 goals against, 892 save percentage. The opportunity is there to maybe surprise this Predators team, but with the way that they are playing currently, if the Canadians come into this game expecting to, well, we've played good in the last two, and they come out and play like they did against, let's say, Arizona, this is a team that could steamroll them pretty easily. And I don't think that that's what any Habs fans want to see at this point, is they don't want to come in and watch themselves get steamrolled by the Predators. Like, this is a team that beat Colorado 5-1. They beat the Wild 6-1, beat the Senators 4-1, the Ducks 4-2, beat Vegas, beat LA, beat the Sharks, beat the Blues. They got smoked by Dallas 9-2, but they're a team that is still, it's a fun challenge for the Canadians to match up against here. Can Nick Suzuki keep it going? These are games where we usually see a lot of goals between the two teams. For whatever reason, when the Habs and Predators get together, there's a lot of goals, and there's sometimes just a touch of nonsense that goes with that. I wouldn't be surprised if Michael McCarron, who has found himself a pretty good NHL spot, wants to kind of get going with Arbor Jacki in this game. And it would be a bad trade-off for the Canadians, but it's absolutely the kind of thing I can see happening in this game. But that's why some people tune in, but not everybody, but some people at least.
Yeah. And so, okay, so let me just ask you one thing. Like, what one thing would make you happy if the Canadians accomplish it in this game? And what one thing will really disappoint you? Because there's a lot of options there, but like, what's the one thing where you're like, I'm not okay with this. Like, this is truly like a step in the wrong direction in this rebuild.
Yeah, it's this whole game is that I don't care if they lose. I care if they lose and they don't look good or don't do the positive things. Like those games against Florida and Tampa that they lost, I'm not upset by, because they played so well in those games and showed a lot of good things. The other games where they're getting blown out, or even the Arizona game that they won and looked terrible, then I'm a little bit annoyed. This is, again, show what you can do. You're going into the trade deadline here now. There are guys that are trying to, keep themselves in the spotlight a little bit. We'll talk at that later in the show here. But there's a lot of guys who are now going to be, hey, I deserve to have a bigger role after the trade deadline if pieces move, or hey, I, am showing what I can do for other teams. Starting tomorrow, basically, it's 2 games of showcasing. What can you do before the trade deadline? Carolina tends to be a little bit of a fluke, weird series for the Canadians, but in this game, I think we're going to see a lot of goals. I wouldn't be shocked if we see 8+ goals between the two teams in this one. I'm looking forward to it because the Predators are always like an agitating, fun, exciting game without straying into being like the Senators or the Panthers, which I find just annoying. It should be a good time. Now, like we said, Jake Allen starting. Hopefully everyone's good. A couple of therapy days from the last game until this one, including Uri Slavkovsky, but I gotta say, the Predators are a game that I look at and I go, I have no strong feelings about this. Let's just watch the hockey game and see what happens until the puck drops and I lose my mind for 3 hours.
Famous last words, though. You're like, I have no strong feelings about this. And then, like, the stupidest thing is going to happen. And then it's going to be like another team where we're like, we hate them. In the meantime, things we do not hate Adam Engstrom and David Reinbacher. Will we see them in Laval sooner rather than later? We're going to talk about that next. But first, this episode is brought to you by Sleeper. We are well into the home stretch of the season. We're about to get past the trade deadline, I should say. And the Canadiens aren't exactly what we want them to be. But regardless of where we are in the current standings, I want to remind everybody that you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. There are so many things to love about the app. For example, you can play daily fantasy NFL, NBA, MLB, CFB, but obviously we're talking about NHL here. There's like a chat function. You can connect with other fans. Your entries can be made in under a minute. It's so easy to use. And all you have to do is pick a player and then decide whether they will record more or less than their sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus minus, and more in any given game. And to win 100 times your cash on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Habs fans. You can win 100 times your money by playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. All right, Scott, let's get into it. Today, you excitedly sent me a link, and then I got really excited. I was in the middle of a meeting, and I got a message from you that the Canadiens are looking at bringing Adam Engstrom over as soon as the season in Sweden is over, and you predicted that this means David Reinbacher will probably be over soon as well. You're on mute.
Basically, David Reinbacher's all but been confirmed that as soon as his Swiss League season is over, whether the club that he's a part of survives relegation or not, that he will be over with the Laval Rocket as soon as possible. Now, I don't think the Habs are in any urge to rush him into an NHL game or fill that spot in unless, God forbid something happens. I believe I talked to Patrick Bexell about this a little bit just to get his take on that. And I wanted to scroll back a little bit to see what he said here. Last regular season game in the SHL is the 12th of March, and the play-in series is the 14th through the 18th quarters of the 21st of March through the 2nd of April. So there is a little bit of time still. It wouldn't be a ton of games, especially if Adam Engstrom's team is playing well in the playoffs. There's a chance that it could go long and it just, doesn't make an impact. I'm looking at the actual standings right now. Rogel has 40, that's 48 games played. Where's the total points here? They have 62 points and they play Moto Hockey in the last game of the season this week, also on 62 points, which would change when Adam Engstrom would be playing in the playoffs. And then the Swiss League has a little bit more time. If they win the relegation round, they still have more games after that. But the clear picture here is that we're going to see prospects coming in very, very soon. I don't think it'll be Lane Hudson, barring an early exit from the NCAA playoffs for Boston, who should be a lock whether or not they win the Hockey East tournament or not. And that would also include Luke Tuck. I wouldn't expect Jacob Fowler this year. Maybe Rhett Pitlick, assuming Minnesota gets eliminated early. I wouldn't put too much thought into that. Overall, those are the two big names. You might maybe see an Oliver Kapanen. You won't see Bogdan Konyushkov coming over. At least I wouldn't imagine so. But we're still at least in a rough estimation 2 weeks away. But like we talked about in Monday's episode here, there's space for them in Laval right now. And, all due respect to Matthias Norlinder and to Olivier Galipeau, who've been filling in for the Rocket this season with injuries to players like Brady Keeper, Justin Barron being called up, Arbor Jacki being called up, rotating pieces through, Jaden Struble being called up. Their spots are going to go to these younger guys very quickly here. I think you're going to see Reinbacher come in and potentially be right on that first pairing alongside Logan Mailloux. And I think you're going to see Adam Engstrom come in. He might not start on the first or second pair because they like some of the other things there, but he's going to play. I wouldn't be surprised if he's a power play option for this team, and it's going to give them the depth that they need. And more importantly, it's going to give these younger guys a closer taste of what North American hockey is like going into next season, the timing and the pace of everything, just to kind of get that figured out. We saw Reinbacher adjust to it in the preseason. I haven't had a chance to watch a ton of Adam Engstrom this season, and he hasn't been available for preseason tournaments because of the SHL season, but it's an exciting time. This is a really fun time for prospect nerds that as teams get eliminated, you get to see all these young bodies coming in. We saw it with Victor Mete and Noah Juleson. We saw it with Josh Juan, Riley Kidney. More and more players kind of flood in here, and you get that excitement. I forgot Cole Caulfield, and they're coming in for the Rocket, beating Toronto, and then getting called up to the NHL. But
Again, beating Toronto.
Yeah, it was great. It was phenomenal stuff. It's a really exciting time, and I want people to understand that if Engstrom doesn't come in and immediately play like top 3 minutes on the team, it's not that they don't think much of him. It's that this is a team still trying to make the playoffs, and they have to ease a player into learning the structure and system. That I'm not going to, throw someone in the deep end in their first NHL game. Be like, you're the first line center tonight. You're going to penalty kill. You're going to run the power play. You're going to run the first. I'm not insane. They're going to give these guys responsibility and see how they respond, but they're going to do it in a way that is productive and not just attaching cement blocks and throwing them off the end of a pier, because that was what the old Rocket did. This, is a new team. They're going to have their bumps. Maybe they won't play much in their first game or two, but I think you'll see that change very, very quickly the minute they get acclimated and get up to speed, which, based on everything we've heard about both players, shouldn't take long at all.
And that's the hope. Also, speaking of an exciting time and prospect nerds, our very good friend Tony Ferrari, if you go on the Elite Prospects YouTube channel, he had a great chat with Owen Beck. I'm not sure because I haven't watched the full thing yet, but I wanted to know if Tony asked Owen Beck what the hell is up with that hair. Because I don't know if you've seen it, Scott, but it's on Tony's Instagram. Either way, I would like to direct all of our listeners to the YouTube channel of our good friend, the Elite Prospects, where Tony has interviewed Owen Beck. And it's like the clips that I've seen of it, the chat is great. And it really is an exciting time. I think if you look at the Canadiens for what they are right now, all the excitement is in their prospects. So the sooner these guys come over, like you said, Scott, the sooner they can get acclimated to Laval, and the sooner they can become a working piece of that machine. But also the sooner we get to see them, the sooner we get to see the excitement of the future. In the meantime, it is the NHL trade deadline, or it's coming up on Friday. And like I said, we will have a live episode with our good friend Ian Boisvert that day. I think we said 6 p.m., but I'm not sure. I just need to go back and confirm that that's good for everybody. And in the meantime, we want to talk about all the news that there's coach firings. There's a lot of stuff going on that could affect the Canadiens this week in the trade deadline and the trade market. And that's all coming up in just one moment here on Locked On Canadiens. But first, this episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. All right, Scott, it's the trade deadline week, and there's so much going on. In fact, we don't know because right now it is like it's around 8 p.m. on Monday night. We don't know if 12 hours from now Kent Hughes is going to do an 8 a.m. drop of some big news. But at the same time, lots is going on around the NHL. This is actually quite surprising to me. Not that it happened, but the timing of it. But Lindy Ruff has been relieved of his duties as New Jersey Devils coach.
Yeah, he hasn't been very good recently.
Oh no, that's what, like, beyond doubt. It's just that like they waited so long to do it that it's like, why now?
I guess sometimes it is you're given no choice. Like you think, they can get it back on track. It's still good. It's still remember the whole Dominique Ducharme thing that like it's still good. We can make this work. It's still no. A lot of people said the best time to fire him was after the playoffs last year and go into this season with somebody else that can give you a fresh kind of look at this team here. And they didn't do that, which guess what? Leads them to where they're at now. Out of a playoff spot, expensive, and most people pointing and laughing at them. They are a team that is, if they are actually serious about getting this season back on track, are going to be very busy at the deadline trying to fix this team. I don't think they want to punt on this season, but at the same time, I don't think they're in a spot that it's a tall order for them to make the playoffs. They have to be nearly flawless, and they don't have the goaltending. They haven't gotten the performances from the bottom parts of the lineup or the defense to make that happen. So I would look for them to be active. And apparently, the only reason they don't have Jacob Markstrom is that it was vetoed by Don Maloney of the Flames ownership group that stopped that trade from happening, based on what Frank Saravalli said today. So they're either going to have to pay out the nose for Jacob Markstrom, which probably might not fix everything they have going on, or they settle for an option B, Jake Allen or someone else in that pool there. I look forward to seeing what New Jersey does, just because they are a team that is going to try and be desperate at the deadline here, but I don't know if they can afford to punt too much down the road here. Also, I just had this. They asked, players like Jake Allen and Tanner Pearson today about, hey, what do you think about the deadline? And Jake Allen just goes, I can't wait for Saturday. I can't wait for it to be over and not have to think about it for another year. I don't know if that reads more as I'm hoping that, I get traded and it's over, or I'm hoping that I'm staying. The rumor is that Kent Hughes is happy to just stick with 3 goalies and they address it in the summertime, which feels like kicking the can down the road, and I'm not a fan of that. And then Tanner Pearson said, we haven't had a discussion, but if I am going to be traded, I'd like to go get a second Stanley Cup ring, which I get it. That's admirable. I completely understand it. But it's really shaping up to be quiet for Montreal, unless
Here's
someone
the
comes
question.
knocking for David Savard.
Well, that's the thing. Is there a market for Tanner Pearson or Jake Allen? It's an honest question. Is there a market for these guys right now at this point in time? Like, because I'm looking at the playoff bound teams or even the bubble teams, and it isn't like I'm not really seeing a fit.
Yeah, it's the teams that are going to be interested in Jake Allen. We haven't heard much in a while, and I really do think that this is, again, going to be something in the offseason where they're going to assess, where did Jakob Dobish end up? Is he closer or further than we thought? Caden Primo has, while not flawlessly performed this year, has been a pretty solid backup option. He hasn't played a ton of games, but he's over 900, which for most backups is all you can ask for. I don't know. Sean Monahan was always going to be the first pillar to fall for the Canadiens here, but it's curious to see what's going to be the next one. The Habs aren't actively shopping David Savard, but they're certainly listening on everything. And with Chris Tanev traded now, a lot of the talk is someone will circle back and, make Kent Hughes an offer he can't refuse. And Hughes likes Savard. The team likes Savard. I get why they're keeping him. But for someone like Tanner Pearson, I don't know. It's the scoring touch hasn't really been there, but the Canadiens are also not a great team. You know, he came off the line with Sean Monahan and Brendan Gallagher, where Sean Monahan was clearly doing a lot of heavy lifting and hasn't quite looked the same. You can't play with, Josh Anderson. They're playing with amalgamation of, centers in the bottom six there. And maybe someone will be like, we'll toss you a 5th round pick or a 6th round pick. And Hughes will go, okay. And they just move on with that. So
I like how
it's,
you said I'll toss you a pick because like it's hockey, so he'll definitely be like, I'll sauce you a pick.
oh, God. Hockey bros shouldn't be hockey GMs, but it's shaping up to be quiet again. But at the same time, I think we're going to get a real big picture of what in the next couple days. I'm expecting trades to flow in now. And by the time the deadline rolls around, it's going to be, okay, is Kent Hughes holding enough cards that teams are going to come knocking for them? We've heard about no one's interested in any of the Sharks pieces. Sorry, JD. And that's a problem for them. They can't trade and get more assets because nobody wants the assets they have.
Right.
I'm not sure where the Habs' total asset value is amongst other teams, but David Savard's got a ring, veteran, pretty well respected around the league. Tanner Pearson's got a ring. Maybe he's worth something. Jake Allen has a ring, maybe worth something as a backup goaltender, like Jonathan Quick was for Vegas last year. He didn't have to do anything, but he's there in case they need him. It's a lot of, they just have to kind of wait out the field now. And I know that it's not super exciting or anything like that, but I think you're going to see, if anything, small deals and maybe one of these other pieces. It all depends on what trade chips fall in, I'm going to say, the next 48 hours before the deadline. So on Tuesday and Wednesday, whatever happens there is going to it should give us an indication on whether or not the Canadiens we're going to be bored and you're going to be eating snacks in front of your TV for 8 hours for no reason, or if you're going to be frantically looking on Twitter for trades come Friday morning.
What's wrong with eating snacks in front of your TV for 8 hours, Scott?
I mean, nothing, because that's usually what I do on trade deadline day. So like,
I generally work trade deadline day. Like I haven't taken it off, I don't think, ever in my life. But it's really fun because I'll definitely like the most important or most impactful Canadians trades will happen when I'm in like a really important meeting or something. But either way, we're very excited to break down the trade deadline, but also just have a live episode, but also talk to our good friend Ian Boisvert, and that's going to be on Friday evening. So we hope you'll all tune in for that. We will have more concrete details on tomorrow's episode, along with a recap of the Habs Preds game and reaction to anything that happens in the trade deadline milieu, I guess, over the course of the day. So please make sure that you are subscribed to this podcast wherever you get your podcast, as well as on YouTube. Like I said, we're free and available everywhere. And in the meantime, you can find us on social media. The podcast account is at LO_Canadians. Scott and I are all over social media at The Active Stick and at Scott Matla. You can also email us at lockedoncanadians@gmail.com. We absolutely adore hearing from you. You can leave comments in the YouTube comments, but also if you want us to ask it as a mailbag question, please write MBQ or mailbag question at the beginning. You can always tweet or DM us Twitter question, mailbag questions as well. And I even get them on Instagram. You can get at us at any way you like. Just send us your questions. We'll talk about them on the mailbag, and please get ready for a very fun live episode. Thank you so much for listening, and we will be talking to you tomorrow.